Extraordinary news conference is over in Tucson. To recap it briefly, that was Dr. Richard Carmona, the former U.S. Surgeon General, who says that Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords shot today among 19 people shot out of a crowd of not more than 3 dozen. Congresswoman Giffords can survive her head wounds, but this is a very devastating wound, a very severe injury. Before Dr. Carmona spoke, the deputy of Pima County in Arizona, that's Clarence Dupnick, said that 6 are dead, 13 are injured, 5 died at the scene, 1 died, a 9-year-old girl at a local hospital. He did not name the man arrested. He did say, "We're not convinced he acted alone," and that they have photos of a possible second individual, a person of interest, not a shooter, and they're not giving out any other information at this time for reasons that they are also keeping to themselves. But he added that Congresswoman Giffords was the target. He also made several extraordinary statements for a law enforcement official about the rhetorical environment in which today's events occurred. Arizona, the sheriff said, has become the mecca of prejudice and bigotry. He cited the vitriol of those in, quote, the radio business and some in the television business. That may be free speech, he said, but it does not come without consequences. There is also, the sheriff confirmed, a suspicious package at the Giffords office in Tucson. And from Washington, just before that news conference began, the word from the majority leader, Eric Cantor of Virginia, that no business will be conducted in the House next week, including the scheduled vote to repeal health care reform. Congresswoman Giffords was reelected in November to her 3rd term, and just Wednesday she was at the Capitol with her colleagues reading the Constitution aloud. She had been privileged to read the First Amendment.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances.
This was what it should have been about today, the right to peaceably assemble, or peaceably to assemble, to meet an elected representative and for her to enjoy her weekend home after the swearing in of the new Congress. Instead, this extraordinary, terrible act of violence. NBC News is identifying the suspect, who authorities have in custody, even though they did not give his name, as Jared Lee Loftner of Arizona. The military now says he was rejected when he attempted to enlist in the U.S. Army and will not disclose why. Sheriff Dupnick said he had previously made threats to kill, not to kill Congresswoman Giffords, and there had been law enforcement contact with that suspect. There are videos on YouTube believed to be, but not yet confirmed to be, Loftner's, in which the writer expresses distrust in government, makes specific reference to Congresswoman Giffords' congressional district, says if you're literate in English grammar, then you comprehend English grammar. The majority of people who reside in District 8 are illiterate. Hilarious. The writer also says he won't pay debt with a currency that's not backed by gold and silver. The sheriff was asked about that YouTube video in which these statements were made and knew the length of it. Unfortunately, no one followed up with the obvious question, was whether or not they could confirm that the suspect and the author of that YouTube video were indeed one and the same person, a question we will continue to pursue in our coverage here in the next few hours. Joining us now is Arizona State Senator Kyrsten Sinema, friend and colleague of Congresswoman Giffords and of this program. Senator, we're in your debt tonight of all nights. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Keith, for covering this really important issue.
You've been in touch with those around the Congresswoman all day. Are there details of which you're aware that we may not be at this point that you could share?
Well, what we just heard from the Pima County press conference was pretty thorough. She is in critical condition in the intensive care unit. Her prognosis is as good as one could be after having sustained a direct gunshot to the head. And I think the hopes and well wishes of not just Arizona but all the country are with her tonight.
Tell me about Gabby Giffords, the Congresswoman, and Gabby Giffords, the person.
Well, Gabby and I served together in the state legislature and remained friends after she moved on to Congress. Gabby is incredibly intelligent. She is also very kind. One of Gabby's greatest strengths is finding a third way to help bring together compromise and solutions. The district she represents is the district I grew up in as a child. I was born and raised close to that very Safeway, and it's a very diverse community, and Gabby has a really unique talent of meeting the needs not only of liberal Democrats but also conservative southern Arizona ranchers. And so this is really very shocking because Gabby is well loved and well respected in our community.
Obviously, you weren't at that supermarket this morning in Tucson, so obviously you could have no idea of the specifics of this. But what would that event have been like? What would it have been for? What should it have been if this extraordinary event had not intervened?
Well, Gabby did this kind of event all the time. She called it Congress on Your Corner. And basically what she did on the weekends when she was home from Congress was she would travel to different locations around the district, like Safeways or other open markets, set up tables, and basically just invite the community to come talk to her. Each individual who arrived would get about 10 minutes of individual time with the Congresswoman to share their concerns, questions, complaints, thanks, and she was known for doing this throughout her 4 years that she's already served in Congress. This was her first Congress on Your Corner of her new term.
The closer you get to the local level, the immediate level in politics, the more direct and unfettered contact with the public is essential, as you suggested with this Congress on Your Corner idea. Does that have to change in Arizona now or in the nation? What will you do as a state senator under these circumstances?
I'm not changing a thing, Keith. We cannot be afraid to do our job. And Gabby ran for office because she cared about her community, and she still does. And that's the same reason I ran for office. And I don't think any of us are going to change. We can't be afraid. We can't let this be a message for us to go and hide. We have to continue to speak to our constituents on the corners and in grocery stores and in our communities. We have to do this every single day.
Sheriff Dupnick, in what are usually the most austere of circumstances, that news conference that you listened to as I did, made some extraordinary statements about the temper of the times, specifically in Arizona, and to refer to the state as the mecca of prejudice and bigotry, and to invoke the rhetoric of those in the radio business and some in the television business, and to talk about it may be free speech, but it does not come without consequences. I'm wondering if you thought that was as extraordinary as I did, and B, what does that say about what they think happened here?
Well, Sheriff Dupnick has been outspoken for several years about what he sees as a changing Arizona. As someone who was born and raised in Pima County, just like Sheriff Dupnick and Gabrielle, I can attest to the fact that our state certainly has changed. And tensions have become very high. Political rhetoric is very intense. Now, I can't say if that relates to what happened today, and I don't know. And frankly, right now, I don't care. I'm just worried about Gabby and the others who were hurt today. But I do hope that in the future we can have a talk about what this country is really committed to, and I hope that we remain committed to freedom and democracy, which means that we resolve our conflicts in a way of communication and diplomacy and talking through our problems and finding compromises and solutions, and that we consider violence to be not an option at all.
Last question, Kirsten, then I'll let you go with my extraordinary thanks. Did you know Judge Roll?
I had never appeared before Judge Roll. As you know, I'm an attorney, and I had never appeared in his court because he practices in Tucson. But Judge Roll is well known and loved by attorneys and judges throughout Arizona. He was known in particular for being a very fair-minded, a very gentle soul, and above all, a very kind man.
As Sheriff Dupnick said, one of the finest human beings I've ever known, and the terrible irony that he was there unannounced, that he lived in the neighborhood, broadly speaking, and as the sheriff said, he came by to say hi to his congresswoman.
Yes.
Arizona State Senator Kirsten Sinema, as I said, under the most extraordinary of circumstances, I appreciate your giving of your time so generously tonight, and my condolences.
Of course, Keith.